That's all there is to it. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la.
Shabbat Shalom
Shabbat Shalom.
to our small but mighty crowd in the garden, to all those who are tuning in from home. As I shared in the video message, this has been a week of culminations, celebrations, graduations. It's been so beautiful to watch all of the photos being shared, teens posing at prom, college, caps and gowns. Cantor Scher's daughter is graduating from high school this week. My little one graduated from nursery school, from pre-K. And on this cusp of summer, it's a time of transitions for so many people, both in our lives and also in the narrative of our Torah. For our biblical ancestors, this week's Torah portion, Chukat, also marks a watershed moment where we lose both Miriam and Aaron, and Moses is told that he too will not make it into the promised land. More on that in a little bit and at Chevra tomorrow morning. But suffice it to say that this week's Torah portion is, just like this week has been for so many of us, a time of goodbyes and new beginnings. One of those liminal moments as the Israelites begin to wind down their time in the wilderness, but can just see in the distance the promised land they are approaching. For them, as for us, this is a time of looking back, of reflecting, of reminiscing, and also starting to look ahead. The Israelites worrying, wondering about what that next iteration of their lives will look like without some of the steady scaffolds they've gotten so used to. But for tonight, for this hour, our job is to suspend both of those impulses, to stop looking back, to stop worrying about the future, and just to be in the present moment. Shabbat is about the sacred here and now. So I invite you to settle in here at home, to take a deep breath, and let your soul sink into Shabbat. Prepare to kindle our Sabbath lights. If you are at home, please join us in taking out some candlesticks as we add a little light to our world and to Shabbat.
Yvette, you want to come light some Shabbat?
Speaking of people who add light to the world.
And to the light, we add a little bit of sweetness. Join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, b'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit. Ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu vacharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadosh haShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. So as we begin with Kabbalah Shabbat, we know Kabbalah means to receive Shabbat. And what exactly does that mean? It makes me think of what Rabbi Frankel just said. It's how do we prepare ourselves for this moment? It's not just warming up our voices, but it's warming up our bodies. It's getting in the mindset, and perhaps it's just letting go of a little bit of that schmutz and shaking it all off and taking a deep breath in, breathing in the air, breathing in the music, breathing in the beauty that's all around. We begin with L'chun Ranana. L'chun Ranana l'Adonai, Nariah litzur yishenu, nekadma fanav b'toda, izmirot nariah lo. Join me in the English. Come, let us sing joyously to Adonai. Raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. Bo nishtachaveh v'nichra, nivrecha livnei Adonai Yoseinu, ki hu Eloheinu va'anachnu amarito. Hayom bi'atzon, hayom b'kolo tishma'u. Shiru l'Adonai, shiru shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo, basru miyom leyom yeshuato, sapru b'goyim kevodo. Bechol ha'amim nifleotav, ki gadol Adonai, umhulal me'od, norahu, al kol Elohim, yalanai, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Listening to the birds around, I don't know if you can hear them while I'm singing. I'm hearing the chirp. It's just one beautiful moment in Shabbat. We join together the pinnacle of Kabbalah Shabbat for the hymn L'chadodi. L'chadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat mekabela דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמוע וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולי תהילה. לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה. סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי. כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת פניו, גם בשמחה צהולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
So before you sit down, you can have a little exercise if you want. But we join our voices to that great symphony of nature, to the birds chirping, to the wind rustling through the leaves. It's as if God's self is calling us to prayer. We turn in our service to Barchlu.
Yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
So as I shared with our little ones, we had about 100 people spread across the lawn on picnic blankets for our Tat Shabbat just a couple hours ago. And as I told them, today is actually a double holiday. It's Shabbat, and it's also a special holiday that some of us are just recently learning about called Juneteenth. In case you missed the memo, today was the first official federal observance of a holiday whose significance goes back over 150 years. All the way to 1865. Though the Emancipation Proclamation was signed a couple years before that, in 1863, its implementation took apparently quite a long time, especially in the southern states where the Confederacy was still strong. And so Juneteenth, an abbreviation for June 19th, though because it falls on a Saturday this year, was observed today, marks the date when more than 250,000 enslaved Black people in Texas were finally set free. Juneteenth is sometimes called our second Independence Day, but the truth is, for our African American brothers and sisters, it is the only Independence Day. It is the beginning of what America was for everyone else, a place where all of us were free for life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And so, too, we ought to think of Juneteenth as at least a kind of bookend to our July 4th celebration. Of course, as we celebrate this Juneteenth, this historic milestone, and the significant affirmation that it's now gotten, we also need to affirm that that was merely the beginning of an ongoing process of racial equity that is still unfolding very much in this moment and largely yet unrealized. True equality, real redemption for Americans of color is still elusive and will only come with our steadfast solidarity and commitment to keep fighting for it. For that freedom that our ancestors celebrated on the shores of the sea. So as we sing these words of Mi Chamocha and celebrate the freedom of the Israelites, the freedom of the slaves on Juneteenth, we also hope to be inspired to keep ensuring that every person in this country may truly yet be free.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Mi chamocha, mi chamocha, mi chamocha, ba'elim Adonai. Yanai nanai, 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 yanai nanai. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Mi chamocha, mi chamocha, mi chamocha, ba'elim Adonai.
We rise for our tefillah, either in body or spirit, preparing for a little bit of personal prayer.
Adonai sfatai tiftach. Adonai sfatai tiftach. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Ufi and the meditation This is the sacred time in our service where we have an opportunity to think about those in our lives who are in need of healing. I have been asked, I'm sure every clergy person has been asked so many times over the years, what do you say to people when they're in a hospital or when you're going to their house? How do you be there for people? How do you deal with the suffering? And I would say that Moses got it right when his sister had Sara'at, had this disease, and he said these simple but most effective words, which were, El na rafana, please God, heal her. That's all we can say. Please heal. On this Shabbat, we think of the following members in our temple family and beyond who are in need of healing of mind, body, and spirit. Alan Bogner, Harriet Lipton, Hannah Stempelman, Enid Elton, Louise Elton, Bonnie Davis, Lori Weinberg, David Goldstein, Stanley Tereski, Bob Glassman, Marty Feldner, Andy Rosenthal, Patricia Zapata, Avraham Yochanan Dov Lesser, Louis Siegel, Nate Moskowitz, Ari Fox, Keith Schoen, Barbara Peabody, June Foreman, Paul Wiggins, Jody Kahn, Joseph Spinelli, Lawrence Cohen, Susie Wolfson, Antonia Nalita Chipola, Harriet Katz, Pat Ryan, Samuel Phillip, Jerry Golner, Ian Spear, Norton Blumberg, Terry Rossman, Julie Ross, Deb Margolin, Paul Stampelman, Scott Siegel, Greg Kellner, Daniel Foley, and George Siminoff. If there's someone who you're thinking about, please say their name aloud now or in your heart. Those words, El Na Rafana, are expressed in this beautiful setting by Todd Hertzberg that we'll have a chance to sing because there's a lot of echoing back and forth. So we all can say these words, sing these words together.
Restore our strength of body. Restore our strength of body. Help clarify our minds. Help clarify our minds. Refresh our tired spirits. Refresh our tired spirits. Rejuvenate our lives. Rejuvenate our lives.
Isn't that exquisite? That precious Miriam, for whom Moses prayed those very words. In this week's Torah portion, she dies. The watershed moment, the one that everyone talks about from Parshat Chukat, is the moment of Moses hitting the rock and the result being told he won't be entering the promised land. But water literally is a key theme throughout this parsha, and importantly because of Miriam. Because while the focus tends to be on Moses' service, it's Miriam who we really lose this Shabbat. And as compared to the very elaborate farewell that Aaron gets at the end of this week's Torah portion, Numbers 20 opens so simply. And the children of Israel, the whole congregation, we're told, came into the wilderness of Zin in the first month. The people dwelled in Kadesh. Miriam died there, and she was buried. That's all that's said about it. Not a word about her final moments, no official mourning that's marked in the wake of her death. Just Miriam died and was buried. Well, rest assured that even 2,000 years ago, our rabbis were unsatisfied with that lack of closure, with that lack of proper kavod, of honor for the prophetess. And so they looked to the very next verse of Torah for clues. Because as the text continues, right after Miriam died, we read, and there was no water for the congregation. In other words, the very next thing that happens right after Miriam's death is that the Israelites are plagued once again by drought. And this juxtaposition of these two statements, these two moments, leads to a beautiful set of midrashim, of interpretations about Miriam's mythic, mystic well, described by our tradition as Mayim Chayim, a fountain of living waters that had nourished the Israelites on their journey for 40 years, but then suddenly with her death disappears this week. Miriam's association with water, though culminating this week with her death, of course crescendos at the shores of the sea when she leads the women in song and dance. And it begins really with the beginning of the Exodus story by the banks of the Nile River. Rabbeinu Bachya, as do so many other commentators, underscore this connection between Miriam and the water. He teaches the water which the people had enjoyed was due to the merit of Miriam, who had stood by watching what would happen to her baby brother Moses when he was in a basket in the reeds at the edge of the river. And so God rewarded her for this act of kindness by making her the provider of water for all the Israelites. But the people had not appreciated this, Reb Bachya teaches, until the well ceased with her death. Or in the words of Joni Mitchell, you don't know what you got till it's gone. And so upon Miriam's death, when those life-giving waters suddenly dry up, the people are frightened. And they start again with their kvetching, which is why I affectionately call the book of Numbers the book of kvetch. This is a common motif. And thus begins that infamous episode at Kadesh where Moses is instructed to speak to a rock to draw forth water, but instead, in a fit of anger and probably grief too over the loss of his sister, he instead hits it twice. And while the water does successfully pour out for the Israelites, God is swift and severe in God's rebuke of Moses. Because he lost his faith in this moment, Moses will no longer lead the Israelites into the promised land. Rather, he too will die in the wilderness. Well, tomorrow morning at Chevra Torah, I hope you'll join us online as we delve deep into what exactly Moses' sin was. Was the punishment justified, even related to this rash act of the rock? Spoiler alert, there is no one agreed upon answer by our tradition. But for tonight, what I want to focus on is what happens at the end of the portion. Once the rock has been hit, Moses' fate has been sealed, and both Miriam and Aaron are killed off, so to speak, from the script. With the triumvirate of leadership now down to Moses alone, he leads the people away from Kadesh, that place whose Hebrew name means holy, eventually arriving at an encampment called Be'er, well in Hebrew. Sometimes the Torah is subtle in its symbolism. Other times, the message is really clear. So having just lost Miriam and Aaron, seeing Moses condemned to death after the last water episode, the Israelites immediately begin to complain at Be'er, the well, that they are thirsty. But this is where something amazing happens, not what we might expect. As in the prior scene, Moses is again commanded by God, gather the Israelites so that God can provide them with water. But before he or God can say another word, at Be'er, at this well, the Israelites break into spontaneous song. Chanting, as Debbie Friedman at least imagined the tune, sing up a well and sing ye unto it. I'll spare you the rest of her song. But the Hebrew introducing this song that they sing precisely parallels the Song of the Sea some 40 years earlier, attributed initially to Moses, except instead of Az Yashir Moshe, as Moses sang, the Torah now recounts Az Yashir Yisrael et Hashira Hazot. Then Israel sang out this song. This drought episode, right after the hitting of the rock, must have been a terrifying time for the Israelites, begging the question, what would they do without Moses the next time there's a drought, or the next time after that? How will they survive? And so how very powerful that in the very first hours after the Israelites learn they will lose their leader, their shepherd of 40 years, that the people find their own voice and lift it independently for the first time in song. For Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, as for all of our children, it's often precisely at the moment where we parental figures take a step back, even begrudgingly sometimes, that they learn to care for themselves, to provide for themselves, to be the masters of their own wells. My teacher, Rabbi Dr. Norman Cohen, underscores the poignancy of this moment. Just as so many of us are marveling in these weeks at how our babies have suddenly grown up, graduating preschool, high school, college, Dr. Cohen reminds us how far the Israelites have come in these 40 years. They were, he recalls, just a young fledgling people who could at best merely repeat Moses' words at the seashore. But now, after their travails of their 40-year trek through the wilderness, a mature Israel is ready to sing on its own. They've learned from both Moses and Miriam, internalizing their melodies, their messages, and the Israelites are empowered now to sing even without their leaders. Isn't that what all of us hope for as parents, as grandparents, as teachers? To inspire the next generation to become independent, to become resilient, essentially to put ourselves out of business, as Moses, Aaron, and Miriam are in this week's Torah portion. And so while Parshat Chukat is often pointed to as the moment of Moses' great failure, I want to suggest that it is also the very proof of his success as a leader. The reason he's called Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, the greatest prophet to ever live. Was he perfect? No. But what good would it have done had he been? Because he was imperfect, because he was so very human, we have so much to learn from his example. So in this season of saying goodbye, of letting go, of marking these milestones, whether it's sending kids off for a few weeks to camp or indefinitely to the next phase of their lives, let us take heart from the legacy of Moses and Miriam to celebrate all of our children as they sing and as they soar. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be so. Friends, we turn to the concluding portion of our service, Aleinu L'Shabach. There are no page numbers, but it can be found at the bottom of the penultimate page. We rise once more, either in body or in spirit.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
In the spirit of the passing of generations, a poem not in your prayer packet to anchor us for Kaddish. It's called Epitaph by Merritt Malloy, who writes, "When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You could love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away." As we turn to this moment of memory, we think of those who are no longer physically present, but whose love very much still lives for us. In particular, those for whom a period of shloshim, of 30 days of mourning, continues to be observed. Saul B. Cohen, husband of Miriam, father of Luis and Deborah. Sylvia Engleson, grandmother of Beth Metzendorf. Ron Glassberg, husband of Ina, father of Rhonda. Ian Fredman, cousin of Louise Elton. Marianne Madoff, wife of Michael, mother of Dylan and Michaela. Maurice Spanbach, father of Betsy. And we add to their names those for whom a yahrzeit is marked this Shabbat. We remember with love and with reverence Rose Ziashul, Abby M. Foster, Harry Hayes, Lalija Pormales, Milton Sobel, Max Tone, Marjorie Alexander, Isaac Weissman, Albert Tanney, Ernest Asher, Sidney Blum, Minnie Kirschbaum, Benjamin Schoen, Albert Hofberg, Ida Bernstein, Gerald Flukicker, Ruth Zimmerman, Rebecca Robbins, David Gersh, Theodore Klein, Sylvia Barbash, Joe Feinberg, Samuel Lieber, Minnie Miller, Isidore Zeisman, Samuel Kostrinsky, Michael Brody, and Mark Van Zant. If you are thinking of someone who died in recent days, at this season in years past, or just whose love you carry with you each and every day, I invite you to add their name as well. Zichronam livracha, may their memories continue to be a blessing for all who knew them as we join together in these words of Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shamei rabbah, be'alma zivrach yurutei ve'amlich malchutei, be'chayachon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitzromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitzaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudasha barichu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mrumav, Huya Aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to Israel, to all those who mourn, and to the entire world, as together we say, Amen. I want to invite, you may be seated, I want to invite up Jeff Wang to share some greetings and announcements.
Hello, Shabbat Shalom. So the last time I did announcements, I got one of our congregates came up to me and said, "You did a really nice job, but let me give you two pieces of advice. One, introduce yourself, and the other, speak into the mic." Unassailably good suggestions. So I'm Jeff Wang, a member of our Temple's Executive Committee, and I'll try to speak into the mic. And as always, we've got things going on. Maybe somewhat fewer with the summer here, but the major one is that next week we have the Garden Party concert next Saturday at 7 p.m. with our headliners, Cantor Scher and Melanie Kraut. It will literally be rocking, I think. It'll be rocking. So come on out. If it's half as beautiful as this, it'll be a great night and just a great way to get back to see everyone. For those of you who have children or grandchildren who are within the Kesher years, I encourage you all to sign up. For those of you who like Kesher and a discount, the early bird discount is good till June 30th, so take advantage of that. But by all means, sign up. It's a great program, and I think you'll all enjoy it. And to all the fathers out there, happy Father's Day. Shabbat Shalom.
And stay tuned for more announcements coming forth as we plan some learning and gatherings and celebrations over the summer. It will be a quieter time at the temple, but also...
But I think it's actually might be the busiest summer that we will
Yes.
have had in a very long time.
So stay
lots
tuned.
going on. We join together for our closing song. Please stand if you like. And this is an oldie but a goodie. I wish that the Feinbergs were here because it's a French Sephardic melody. So if you're watching, Virginia and Michael, this is for you.
אדון עולם השם הלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה וחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד ואין שני להמשילו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה ולא העוז והמשרה והוא אלי וחי גואלי בצור חבלי בעת צרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו אפקיד רוחי בעת אישן ועין רע ואם רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא אדוני לי ולא יירא.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.